You can absolutely wreck enemies with the proper spells in Elden Ring, making for some really fun and satisfying moments like these, where bosses have absolutely no chance other than getting blasted from the face of the planet, whatever that might be called, I don't really know. But essentially we're gonna take a look at 8 or so of the most powerful spells in Elden Ring that you will definitely want to get your hands on, so let's begin. By the way, if you enjoy cheap games and want to get the best gaming discounts you can find around, definitely check out the instant gaming links down below. I've been using this site for years, way before even being sponsored. It never failed me, and there's also a giveaway that I'm doing with them right now for a free copy of Elden Ring or any other game of your choice from the list of games over there. And of course, if you go ahead and check out that link, you would also help the channel out in the process. Now let's begin with a spell that I kind of fell in love after using it for a while, which is the Glintstone icecrag. You acquired this from Sylvius during his questline at the Three Sisters near Ranni. Of course, he has to still be alive. In my case, he did not look too good, but he was kind enough to provide me his bell bearing, so if that happens to you, you can bring that to the maiden at the round table hold to access that stash, including that spell. And this one is actually a really strong replacer to the pebble if you got sick of it, with just a couple of small drawbacks that are greatly outweighed by the huge benefits. One of them is that it has a higher recast rate, which means it's easier to spam this past its initial cast. Second of all, it also provides frostbite build-up, so that this means you will deal extra damage once that happens, and oftentimes also resulting in a stagger even against bosses. Plus, it benefits from the 10% increase in bonus frost damage if you also use that Frost Witch set that Ranni gives you around the middle part of her quest line, so definitely worth it and definitely an amazing spell. The only downside is that it's slightly shorter range than the pebble, and it also has a bit higher FP cost, but yeah, the benefits are just too great to pass it up. Coming up to number 2, a very underrated spell is actually the great oracular bubble. Unlike most spells in today's list, this one also requires about 18 points into arcane, but that is definitely worth it. This will cast a slow moving bubble that can be charged, which will hit enemies like a truck, assuming that truck is moving slowly, but it's still capable of dealing very high damage nonetheless. The bubble can also be charged for even more extra damage, hitting enemies for well over 1000 even with a decent build, and also dealing splash damage in a rather decent AoE area, so this means if enemies group against you, you can take them all at the same time. Now to acquire this, you need to defeat the teardrop beetle in Siofra River right here near the aqueduct. Now you can make your way over there with the nearby Essential Woods waypoint. Just follow the aqueduct until you reach these lower parts of the lake, so descend over there. Once you're here, pay close attention to this archway with a lot of enemies inside, and go ahead, defeat a beetle, and this is going to give you that spell. But coming up at number 3, we have an even more devastating spell called the Meteorite. You can acquire this from the Alabaster Lord boss encounter just outside of the Caria Manor, east of the nearby waypoint. The spell does exactly what it sounds like. It will just cast a number of meteorites that will start falling all over the place in front of you in random directions, covering a pretty large area at a medium distance. Now what makes this skill so OP is the fact that you can keep that button pressed to shoot for as long as you still have FP left, meaning that you can potentially turn this into another infinite cast similar to Comet Azure, but actually way more powerful using the Cerulean hidden tier, so maybe you want to also grab that. Once you acquire that infinite mana, and with a bit of positioning, you will literally destroy any boss that might be unlucky enough to be in front of you. The boulders deal devastating damage against any target, and even more so, they have a very high chance to stagger enemies, kinda like the rock sling, but in this case, it's way better. You do need to stay close to the target, or well, medium size close, so that all of the boulders or most of them can hit, which is definitely something that is more suited for large bosses. Now there is an even more absurd version of this, by the way, called the Meteorite of Astel that you get from the boss with the same name. This is just like the previous Meteorite spell, except on steroids. You get this much later in the game, but you get to hurl way more rocks that seem to concentrate way easier into the middle section, which means way more damage and way more stagger. In this case, I was able to destroy pretty much any boss I set my eyes upon. Just pop the tier, pop the meteorites, and you will blast the entire planet like there's no tomorrow. Now moving on to number 4, let's talk about two really awesome spells that could have some nice advantages, especially in PvP. Well, at least one of them. Well, this is the Cannon of Haima and the Gavel of Haima. You acquire these from completing a quick puzzle that starts at the Church of Aerith, just outside of Godric's castle. What you have to do is to head inside of this and meet Thops over here, who will tell you he needs an Academy Glintstone key in exchange of a gesture that you will want to complete that puzzle. Now you can't give him your own key, so what you have to do is to head back to the Academy and get it from the church over there, but unfortunately it's going to be on top of one of these chandeliers. So what you have to do is to make your way from rooftop to rooftop over there until you reach the church area, go inside one of these broken windows, and you should see the second chandelier that holds that item that you need to progress the quest. Once done, just head back to Thops at the Church of Aerith and he will progress the mission by giving you that gesture that you need to unlock the next part. Now from here on, you only need one more thing, which is the Glintstone helmet. Any Glintstone helmet, so you can grab a few from the Academy, and I also covered one earlier today if you want to check that video out. But once you got both of these, you need to just head over to the converted Fringe Tower right here up north of Liurnia for the final part. Once you're here, go ahead and use that erudition gesture that you just got while having the Glintstone helmet on, and this should open up that blocked path ahead. Simply make your way at the top of the tower and it's going to give you that Cannon and Gavel of Haima. Now the Cannon is a large, rather high range AoE spell that can quickly turn entire groups of enemies into nothing. Now the spell casting of this is not too long, and of course you can also keep it pressed for longer to like unleash an even more devastating version of it, but even like the fast cast one is still good enough. It covers a high AoE area and also deals devastating damage, which more often than not means, well, pretty much instant death for most smaller enemies. Now the Gavel on the other hand is kind of like this hammer, so to speak, especially if you like the version that Margit had when you first encountered him at the beginning of the game. Well, this one does pretty much the same. It's a similar magical hammer that bonks enemies in their heads. From my testing, it seems to actually activate faster than any other Glintstone weapon, such as the Carrion Slicer, so you can probably outclass any enemy that uses that. It's actually fast to activate in general and can quickly take down enemies by surprise, especially if you were to play PvP. I would assume that most enemies that get close to a mage do not expect for a melee attack right in their face. Now moving on to number 7, this brings us to probably one of my favorite setups right now in the game, which brings us to Ranni's Dark Moon spell, which is kind of like this, moon that you summon, similar to the same one that Renala casts. So in case you did not get that version, you can get this one, which is way more powerful and also provides a big 30% damage increase on any target affected by the Dark Moon. Now the cast time on this spell is rather long, so you will want to properly position yourself or ambush the enemy before the combat starts, and also you don't have invincibility frames until the last split second when your character enters the bubble. Until then, you have to be careful because you can definitely be knocked out for huge damage, stagger, and also cancelling that spell. But if you do unleash it properly, it deals 3000 plus with a really unoptimized build that I have right now. Even though I do have enough intellect for it, it's not like as high as it could be, and it still deals like over 3000 easily. Now to acquire this, you actually have to finish Ranni's quest line until you reach this spot called Moonlight Altar. You cannot miss it if you do that quest line, but once you're done with that, you want to head over to the south of the area right here at the Kelowna Rise Tower and complete a quick puzzle to kill 3 turtles. Now the first one is going to be located just right of the tower right here by this side of the cliff walls, so just take that turtle down. The second one is going to be opposite side of the map, so go ahead into these fields onto the lower section and you should find the second turtle right here. The third and final one will be located just northwest right here by the main road leading to the nearby tower. Simply use the airstream to jump up, hit the turtle, and that should be enough. And once you're done, you can go back at the tower, all the way up, and grab the spell, and that's pretty much it. Now, to further enhance this and make it even stronger, you will want to also couple that Ranni's Dark Moon with the Stars of Ruin, especially if you already completed Selen's questline. You get it when you go to the Celia hideaway to find, well, in this case, Lusat, who will give that spell for free the first time you encounter him. This is a very costly FP build, but it will deal devastating damage, especially if you start with the Dark Moon, debuff the enemy, and then follow up with the Star of Ruin. It's going to absolutely devastate enemies. The Stars of Ruin especially are very fast, especially once you cast them. It's like most of the enemies won't even be able to dodge that, if at all, and you deal like over 1500 damage with it with the spam. So overall, it's just an amazing fit, especially if you also use the Lusat gear set, by the way. Anyway, let me know down below which one was your favorite, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So peace out.